Hello guys, my name is TheRussianBadger and welcome to the Endgame DLC that is so much fun for so many different people, and I had been neglecting it for the longest time because the Rush is not very good. It's really not good. And you guys know that I only play Rush because I think Conquest is pretty boring in a lot of cases. Save 64-player Operation Metro, obviously that's an exception, but this map is essentially let's all hide behind a rock and hope that we don't get sniped in the face by Shin-Chan over here. That's basically what this DLC is. Okay, so we got 4 different maps. We got Nebandan Flats, which is, like I just said, the map that we're playing on right now. Let's all hide behind a rock and play the latest Phoenix Wright game and hope that we don't get our face taken off as soon as we pop our head up. We've got Operation Riverside. Everybody's lurking on a cliff or trying to use the little bird and failing miserably. Sabalin or Sabalon Pipeline, where everybody and their mother is just crying to themselves because DICE didn't give us white winter camo. And Kaisar Railroad, where beyond mines everywhere, it's pretty much everything blends in with everything else, and the thermal scopes, the IRNVs that we get aren't adequate enough to really decipher heat from not heat, so it's just not a good time in general. Now, there's one exception to that, alright? And I know you're going to argue, you're going to push back against me, you're going to say, oh, Badger, you're only playing 64-player every time, though. Okay, look, if you can show me a 32-player Rush endgame DLC, I will show you an enjoyable Battlefield experience, alright? But nobody does that. Look, if you look at the server browser, at least in North America, I know these are not always the conditions worldwide. Some of you, I know probably somewhere in Finland or Norway or Germany or like Senegal, I don't know where, but oftentimes I know that you guys have different server experiences in terms of who plays what kind of game modes and what kind of volumes in different countries. Like, well, Badger, here in Sweden, we get 32-player endgame Rush all the time, and it's a grand old experience. But in North America, at least for me, nobody does that. Every single Rush game you try, 64 players. So I know a lot of you are going to push back and just say, oh, well, you see, Badger, these maps are all designed for 32 players. So, no. Yeah, sure, it's designed for 32 players, but realistically, how often is it played by 32 players? Yeah, it's oftentimes played by 32 players on each team. 64 players is the paramount. It's like the norm. It's just everything is 32 players on each side, and it's just not designed for it. You will see on the last base, all right? It's just silly. Not that it's not enjoyable, but I can easily say that in general, I would say Endgame Rush far inferior to the other ones. But the other caveat to that is that I know what you guys don't want to see, Zen Crossing or Grand Bazaar again. It's like ad nauseum at this point. It's just, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. I've seen that way too many times, and I was waiting for that guy to come out of that little lurking crevice there, but I've accepted the challenge of going ahead, and I was trying to shoot out the chopper pilot, but obviously that's not going to work if I don't have the right angle on him. His cockpit is not exactly tilted towards me, so that's quite difficult. Now, on this second base here, if I can easily say that you will most likely, at least in most 64-player servers, you will not make it to the second base. That is almost a rarity, because it's that first base, man, you only have some rocks, and that's all you have. That's all the cover that you have to move forward, and it's very difficult. But sometimes, once you get to the second base, it's even more difficult, because you have that middle hangar. Okay, so to my right now, or excuse me, to my 180, I don't mean to confuse you with degrees or directions, turn 360 and walk away, but that catfish was sitting in that corner all game, alright man, all game. He had other companions in there too, he wasn't the only one. But that door right there is one of your options, the other option is to the left, and the other option is to the right. So it's not really all that complex in terms of what kind of paths you have. I guess you could get really cheeky if you wanted to, if you want to get really technical on me, like, technically, Badger, from this standpoint, you can actually enter through the rear. Well, I guess I'm not a fan of handicap parking, but yes, you can enter through the rear, but this is what I have to say to you. The likelihood that you will enter through the back door without getting shot in the back of the thighs is very low, extremely low. And this right-hand side, yes, you can dunk on people like that all day. But if you shut down the right-hand side and you can try to get in this right-hand door, that's gonna be, at least in my experience, the highest probability of success, just in general. Because every other door is completely sealed off with 25 guys and their mothers and their stepmothers all looking at that door. You're not gonna get through. And I kind of shot myself in the foot in terms of throwing that health kit into my field of view so that I couldn't shoot that guy and I couldn't see him. Technically, yes, you can shoot through those, but in general, it's not always a good idea. And look at this useless cloth monster sitting there in the corner with his knife. I don't even know why I revived him. I don't think he deserved it. I thought this guy was still alive. And yes, I am struggling at this point. But I know that if I'm what are you doing, Carl? Why are you in that corner, man? That's so silly. This is like the craziness that is embodied by 64-player endgame rush. 64-player rush in general, especially on some of those city maps, it's just silly. I guess it can work in some circumstances in terms of, I would say that, I don't know if I want to eat my words here. Caspian border's not bad with 64 players, but still, just the sheer number count of 32 players all defending one crate or two crates, it's very, very difficult to get past. Now you can see, and you saw, obviously spawn protection is not my best friend, but you can see oftentimes that, especially when I'm shooting at those guys far away, sure, my recoil is going high really, really quickly, but that's just because I'm getting suppressed. Once you get suppressed with the AN-94, it's not as ideal as in, you guys probably saw earlier on, there's some guys you can pick off from some pretty far distances just by letting your recoil reset. So you go tap, 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 and it's basically like a recoilless rifle. You just sit there, you don't have to spam it. If you just slowly tap, 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 it's really, really easy to do. But like in cases like this, obviously you have to just tap as fast as you can. But on certain ranges, if you're not suppressed, it's very easy to pick people off from distances that snipers would kill you at. But once you get suppressed, that recoil goes through the roof. It's like your forearm is having a twitch every time you fire a bullet. Finally get that guy again. Cash Money Con Man sitting in the corner for the 50th time. I was trying to get this guy in his feet through that little crate, but that wasn't exactly working. So at this point in time, on a 14 kill streak, and I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do here, so I decide, let's not try the front door. I'm not going to get over to the left side, because oftentimes the left side is filled with the tank, the enemy tank coming out of the spawn, so let's go ahead and go on the right side, because most of the time, even though it's a fairly low success rate, it's probably going to be your best bet. So, and the drivers of some of these Humvees, it's infuriating. It makes me rage so hard. But I guess my team was all contributing. I was actually quite happy with my team's performance, especially on the first base. So, that Glock, man, I somehow got him. I think he hadn't spotted me, but get dunked on, man, for the second kill. And this, I think they only really had two guys on this side, and it was pretty much game over as soon as this happened. Not the entire game, but this base was pretty well done, because I knew that I would probably defeat any kind of support or engineer in here because the AK-74M is very, very accurate. And, you know, once you kill a few of the guys that are guarding the doors, it opens up the floodgates. Once your teammates get in there, you're easily going to take the base. But that initial push, getting over that threshold, is the most difficult part. And right here, I tunnel vision so hard, and it's a very, very good thing to do. Don't focus on anybody else that's not defusing. There can be 25 guys all running up with their hands flailing, ready. You get ready to get like a 25-man spray with an M60 on the stairwell. Shoot the guy that is defusing. And see, that's exactly how you do it. You put the team on your back door and you get the base. All it takes is an initial push, killing a few people on a door and letting other teammates in. Oftentimes with a 64 player, you can't exactly do it like you can a 32 player in terms of you can't be the hero as easily. You can't just sneak behind enemy lines, armbo charges, and then just defend them really easily. Oftentimes doesn't work because you're going to have to reload, you're going to run out of ammo, but the reloading part is probably the most difficult section, or the most difficult portion, as in, sure, you can probably arm the charge, but you fending off that many guys, like 32 enemies that are all trying to defuse a box, that's not... 32 players all running towards you in a box by yourself is much different from 16 players running towards you on a crate. It's very... And yes, they were looking around in our spawn for the longest time. I believe this is the guy whose weapon I took with the Glock, I think. I'm not sure. He was using a very similar setup. But let me tell you exactly what happened right after this base. So here's a brief synopsis, alright? I went to the right side. And on the right side, I got dunked on repeatedly by these lurking cloth monsters and bush monsters that were sitting on these little sand dunes that I couldn't see. I was getting sniped from so many different directions. My eyes started to peel away from my skull. It was really bad. So that's a no-go. Then I went to the left side. Surprise! Helicopters and tanks everywhere. Every single time I try that. So, after all of that work, I finally tried to sneak all the way past and arm A as I get this guy with the Glock who's being very naive, but still, somebody busted a hole in this wall and this guy shot me in the face as soon as I had my one opportunity to get A. So that wasn't successful. So I land here behind this bale of hay, just killing people. And you know what? It didn't work out at all. It was really bad. It was not really successful because I had the epiphany of, I guess 64-player Rush works on certain maps that have enough, I want to say width, if you will, as in enough flanking room and enough cover that can be maintained. As in, you guys know there's some objects, like obviously I'm killing everybody over here, but the issue with that is that I can't really make any sort of advance after that. Oftentimes that like the name of the game in Rush is just you want to kill people or kill a wave of people, kill a group of people, and then move up and make progress, and that's really humorous, Carl. You're not a bird. What are you? Go home, you're drunk, all right? And it just turned into, yes, we can kill a lot of people on the opposing team, but we don't have the cover to conceal us or give us any sort of support as we move up for A. Yes, we got B, but it just turns into, oh look, every wall that ever had any kind of stone or concrete on it is now hollowed out, and it's all, like, look, that entire warehouse is destroyed. There's not a single piece of cover to hide behind, and you can probably argue, yeah, sure, there's those little columns or like little slits of rock that still remain, but those are naded out so quickly, it's just difficult. So I guess my solution is that I think the Rush maps that have some kind of cover that can be maintained throughout the duration of a match to sustain 64 players, because oftentimes the 64 players leads to, oh look, more explosives, which means more explosives being used, which means less cover for advancing teams, and especially when you have 32 players to advance and 32 players to defend, as in 32 players defending one MCOM and the attacking team has no cover, that's just a recipe for a loss for the attacking team. So I really think that a more suitable end game sound effect is this from the beta. Like, this is what should have been said. But it's not really a big deal. Although I do prefer that ending, and I think that ending should have been kept in the final release of the game. Whatever. I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I hope this hasn't been too rantish. I just wanted to let you know my opinions on the Rush dynamic of the final DLC that we will ever receive for Battlefield 3. But I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I will see you guys next time. Auf Wiedersehen und bis bald und later.